Hello, Julia and everyone, and welcome to this wonderful platform where I am very honoured to be interviewing incredible people. Now, not just from the same industries, but from completely different industries and also internationally. Now, today I am joined by the wonderful Julia Sirotina. She's a senior events manager for high-level corporate events at Headspring Executive Development. They're a collaboration between the Financial Times and the IE Business School. Now, Julia has over 14 years experience in this industry and is very passionate about bringing brands to life. And when Julia isn't in work mode, and this is pre-lockdown, by the way, she loves teaching her group fitness class, all things health and fitness and keeping people well and safe. Now, Julia, it is such a pleasure to have you on here today. Lovely to interview you. And let's kickstart by finding out how you are and how things are going.
Thank you, Emily. Thanks for having me. Things are going well now. I think I've definitely adjusted to the new normal. First couple of weeks were trying, but I think I've got a little routine going now. So yeah, feeling much better about it all now.
Oh, brilliant. And what would you say, Julie? I mean, when we went into lockdown and all of these things, kicked in and we were overwhelmed with how to change and how to adapt, what have you found that you've started doing or, been doing now for a while during lockdown that you didn't do before all this happened?
I'd say slowing down. So in my normal life, it's a fast-paced environment. So on top of my day job, I also teach fitness classes, and so my typical week is nonstop. I go from my day job to teaching classes in the evening. By the time I get home, there's enough time to have dinner, go to sleep, wake up again, and do the same thing again. So I'd say with the start of lockdown, what I have definitely started doing is taking time to just go for a walk in the evening, slow pace. I have definitely noticed slowing down, my pace is much slower, and just taking things in and chatting to my neighbors. And it's been different, but that's one of the things I've really enjoyed.
Oh, thank you, Julia. And in that slowing down process, how's that made you feel? What's it made you think about?
I guess so. That's definitely a positive thing. I know that the pace I was living at maybe wasn't sustainable long term, and so I guess just taking a bit more time to myself and just exploring my neighborhood and talking to some locals. I've really enjoyed that. So it's made me think about my pace of life and in the normal life.
It's interesting because I think that you're not alone with that experience. So many people, and myself included, hand on heart, that was almost quite a big wake-up call for me, actually. And I think a few other people who shared that, I don't know whether it's scary how fast-paced we can actually go until we stop. What do you think going forwards over the next 6 months, the next year, few years, what would you like to keep about that? What do you think you might sort of say no to, or, in order to maintain some of that time for yourself and slowing down, Julia?
Well, I think we've all proven that we can definitely work from home quite efficiently, and so I think I probably would not be going back to the office. The Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 kind of thing. So I would definitely like to keep some of that flexibility and be able to work from home more, with the obviously also being able to go into the office. Because I think that gives you the flexibility to then, rather than spending time commuting into the office, I've really enjoyed being able to fit in like a morning walk before I start work, like that helps me focus the mind. So these types of things I'd probably like to keep when we go back to, you know, the new norm.
Yeah, what's that going to look like?
Whatever that's going to look like.
And have you found then at Headspring Executive Development, have the whole team felt, you know, much the same? And are they really open-minded to adopting that flexibility going forwards? Have they seen how it really does work very positively, so having staff at home, and what are their thoughts around, you know, implementing that?
To be honest, even before lockdown, we're quite flexible with our working from home policy. And we could work from home up to 3 days a week, which is, you know, quite generous, I think. I just think that because the majority of people were still like quite used to working from the office, like it was there if you wanted to do that and use that you know, allowance to work from home, but the majority of people were still office based. And so I think it will just mean that we will probably use that a bit more after lockdown, and then I can absolutely see more of my colleagues, including myself, working from home and then going into the office, you know, maybe a couple of days a week.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, how something like this has then forced us all into this situation, and we've almost realized through being forced into this situation that things are better for us that we just didn't know. We weren't necessarily accessing the, you know, the best version of ourselves, perhaps, because we're, you know, it's so easy, isn't it, to get into daily habits, daily routines, like you say, Julia. Quite a lot of people are still going into the office, and then all of a sudden when you get to have that experience of the other side, you think to yourself, oh, okay, actually, we might adopt a bit more of this. I like this. And have you all stayed connected? What's been the most popular tech or platform that you've all really enjoyed using?
Yeah, I think so. We use Zoom and we use Teams, Microsoft Teams. And I think it's just that kind of crystallized what you should be communicating via email, what you should be communicating via Teams, and what's worth a call on Zoom. So I think before that maybe wasn't as clear cut, and like sometimes you'd get an email where you're like, well, you know what, it could have just been literally like a Teams text. Whereas I think now people are a lot clearer on these different channels, communication channels. So that's definitely been an improvement. And like email traffic is still big, but I think definitely that's kind of crystallized in people's minds a bit better. But yeah, we've definitely, like I'd say we're quite good at communicating, loads of Zoom calls. We also were one of those companies, and like from just talking to different people in the industry, but also outside of the industry, I know that some prefer like just using their phones or maybe like just a voice call. At Headspring, we're quite big on like video calls. Everyone just wants to see everyone. It's one of those things where whenever we have a call with colleagues, like it's always a video call. So I think just staying connected, regular catch-ups with colleagues. It's been, I mean, certainly trying, like I'm sure it's tested everyone, but I think we've done well.
It sounds like you've done really well. And do you know what I really love, Julie, about what you've just shared with us, is that a lot of people have talked how they've gone onto more digital platforms, but I really love how you and your team, your colleagues, you've taken it one step further, and you are now identifying, right, what is it that is going to be best communicated through email, best communicated through Teams, and best communicating through Zoom. So you've started to put more structure to streamline the use of those technologies and digital software. And I really like that. And that was something that I think just stood out quite well, and be interested going forward to see how companies, you know, start to kind of like set in place those ratios to get the best from digital. And in terms of the industry, what would you say it's looking like as a whole at the moment for you and the team? What have you found that's either been quite a big change or things that have stayed the same? What would they be like?
Yeah, so I would say, I mean, for us, so we ran smaller scale meetings, and before the lockdown, it was all face to face. So moving our meetings online was actually, I'd say, fairly simple. We just had to find a format, and I think we were able to come up with a format that we thought was quite different, and it worked quite well for our clients or leads. And so, yeah, so I'd say I was quite impressed how quickly we managed to build something and actually convert what would have been a face-to-face interaction to online or a virtual delivery, trying to maximize on the use of technology to still, you know, make it as interactive and as productive as possible. So to me, that was, yeah, I mean, we've managed to, you know, pull it off very quickly. And so credit to the team.
And if anybody, you know, watching this interview right now, Julia, and they've not come across Headspring Executive Development, how would you describe where you are at now as a business to anybody who's thinking, oh, this sounds really cool, I like it, they adapt quickly, they're very, you know, on it when it comes to tech? How would you describe the business and where you are in this lovely month of we're coming into summer? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so Headspringer, we're still quite a young company. I'd say we definitely embrace change where we like to be challenged. And so, yeah, I think there is still definitely things we'd like to explore, and we're always trying to take it a step further and see what else we could be doing to turn every single event, whether online or face-to-face, into an experience. And so, yeah, we love to experiment. We love to learn from others. We like to, you know, get and try fresh new ideas. So I'd say we're a young company, and we love to experiment.
I think that's really healthy, and going forwards, it is about experimenting, it is about adapting, and Headspring clearly do that. And I know when being down and visited the office, you know, it's a great open space, you've got a brilliant team in there, and you can see how that innovation, the atmosphere, it's not kind of stayed, it's innovating, for want of a better word, but you can tell it's moving forwards, and you feel creative and you want to think about the next best thing. And 6 months from now, what do you think would be really great to see in the industry? Is there anything any innovations that have really stood out to you, that have caught your attention, that would be great to see, you know, grow legs, as it were, and become something more?
I mean, I think I'm really impressed by the events industry moving things to online deliveries and the great things that everyone seems to be doing. You know, it is challenging. And, you know, if you've got a large scale event that's sponsored, like, how do you deliver that value to your sponsors? It's, you know, I'm trying to stay on top of all of the latest innovations and see what everyone else is doing, and I've been really, really impressed, and I think there's probably more to come. I'd probably say something quite controversial, but I think, you know, right now everyone is the virtual offering is so I mean, it's there's so much online stuff right now that I think there's a bit of a fatigue of all of the virtual stuff right now. I think what everyone secretly is hoping for is some face-to-face interactions again. And so I know I'm not coming up with anything like innovative, but I think I personally would love to see some face-to-face events, which are going to be, of course, safe and keeping everyone safe and well. But yeah, just back to some face-to-face interactivity and delivering high-level events that are great fun face to face.
It is, and it'll probably be a blend.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are feeling like that. There's that tech side where you can do it online and lean into that if there isn't an alternative. But then, as you say, as times continue to evolve and change, that face-to-face and maybe under new, like, you know, layouts and setups, people can then lean back into that, because human interaction, face-to-face and physically, is so important, isn't it? And you do get something from being there in person, the whole atmosphere that you can soak up. It really is important, isn't it?
Exactly. But I think you're right. I think it won't just be purely virtual or purely face to face anymore. I think it's going to be a blend, and I think this is maybe the innovation part that you've just mentioned. I think this is where we can, as an industry, I think this is where we're gonna have to get creative and find new ways of managing that, to make sure that the events that we deliver going forward are going to be great for the face to face, like people who are actually there on site are gonna really enjoy that, but also those who are watching, you know, online, also get the interactivity and get that experience. So how do you blend the two? Like, how do you cater for both, and so that, you know, your online audience don't just feel like they are dialing into a webinar and they're just there as an observer? But how do you bring them into that event so they can share that experience with the people who are on site? I think that's going to be one of the biggest challenges for us. So whoever cracks that one, I'm sure is going to be very successful. So yeah.
That's so exciting. And that platform to, yeah, whoever, like you said, Julie, whoever really captures, cracks, nurtures that one piece there, because it'll open up so much. I mean, people from the other side of the world who, for example, might not have been able to physically be there, can then attend digitally. It then opens up a whole new, you know, scope of new audience participants. But it's that little bit, like the challenge of how they then get to feel as though they're there and not just an observer. It'll be really interesting. We'll have to come back and touch on this and see if
definitely
there has been something that has stormed the events world as to how to make that. You know, do you think maybe virtual reality? Do you think we'll be wearing headsets to get some of that experience? What you know, to bridge that gap? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think there's probably going to be a lot of innovation on the VR sets. It's actually so at Headspring we already have experimented with VR sets, but that was in the learning environment. That's generated a lot of interest, and I think people in general, people are quite interested in things like that. I think a lot of it will also depend on where we are with the pandemic, because you always have to have safety in mind first. Like, you have to think safety first, and so VR sets, especially if you have to share them with other participants, I think that needs to be really thought through, and how you can do that safely. But I think we'll see some really interesting things. I think we'll see some really great innovation coming out of this. But I think it's an opportunity, and it needs to be seen as an opportunity rather than an obstacle. So it's it's going to be really interesting to see what everyone's going to be doing.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, a year from now, this world as we know it will look so different. And then there's the likes of the augmented reality, and like you say, the sky's the limit. The opportunity, and it is that word, opportunity. And I know that change that may have happened over a 3-year period has happened over a 3-month period, and it's been so fast tracked. And going back to something you said earlier, Julia, it's about that fatigue, and there is, and sometimes I found you go online, and because now everything's online, it's very overwhelming. It's hard to cut through the noise, because I don't always know, as a customer or consumer, well, what is the right or the best or the most effective digital options available, because I don't have that duration of experience. And I think that fatigue probably leans into a little bit of that, doesn't it? Where it's like going a kid into a candy shop who's never tasted candy. Where do I start? So you can't rank some of these experiences yet, because a lot are still haven't been experienced by the consumer. What do you think is a good way for a potential buyer or consumer? How do you suggest that they cut through some of that noise? What would be a good first starting point to help them, decipher what they need?
Yeah, I think it is difficult. There's just so much out there right now, and everyone's being very innovative with how they position their event or their online offering, and I'm sure everyone's in the same boat. You get so many invites to all sorts of things, and I just go, oh my god, this sounds really interesting. I really like to know more about like events, post-COVID. What are they going to look like? Digital offering, how do you digitize your event? And there's just so much of that stuff, and it all sounds really, really interesting. It's just, how do you select, how do you choose what you want to listen to? And you've only got so many hours in the day, and you still have to do your day job, and you still it's difficult. It's cutting through that noise is difficult. We've certainly also struggled with that, to find a way to position our events. How do you get people into your events, because there's just so much of that stuff out there, and everything seems to be free of charge, and I don't think I have like an exact recipe for it, but we've certainly tried to make our events as interactive as possible. To you have to take part on the day to make the most of it. And so it's not like a webinar, because everything's a webinar now. So just kind of maybe using a language to differentiate what you offer and how that stands out from the rest of the online events.
I think you've got the recipe there. The word interactive, Julia. And the reason why that stood out for me personally is you may have seen, I did an interview with a magician, and I know that Matt, he has to, and traditionally he has to be in front of somebody to do all of these wonderful tricks. Even if we watch magicians that are filmed, they've still got that audience, and we're watching them interact with the audience, granted, but he managed to crack this way in which he still got his digital audience to pick cards. So it comes right back to that interactivity, and it's certainly going to make me think now, if I've got all of these different things that are popping up and with the possibility to join, potentially, I think I'm going to look to see, well, which one's got an interactive element. So I think you've got the recipe. So I do think that's a standout for me personally, and I know everyone will have lots of opinions perhaps, but I think that's quite cool. Now, during this time, I have to ask, Julia, there has been so many people who've got many, many guilty pleasures. But what has been your guilty pleasure during this time?
I'd say wine. Yeah, I'm definitely, with, it's just, I love wine, as in I love like a good wine tasting. Obviously, none of that is happening right now, although it's been actually quite interesting to see some of the, I could never even think of a wine tasting taking place online. Like, how do you do that? But that's also taking place online, and people are just getting so creative. And again, like, I just have to highlight how creative events and industry is, and people really have gone above and beyond. I have followed a few like online lectures on wine. That was really interesting. But yeah, my guilty pleasure is definitely a glass of wine on my balcony, especially with this weather. I
don't blame you. And the gorgeous weather we have had, it's perfect. You think, oh, just have a nice glass of wine, sit in the sun, enjoy myself. And I'm loving this idea of interactive wine tasting. How cool is that? And it's true, there's all this creativity, all this opportunity. And I can tell at your core, Julia, you are somebody who is all about those things, all about moving forwards and looking for where that next door, that next possibility, how do we adapt, how do we, you know, evolve and keep making this. And I love that the umbrella itself is opportunity, and you are totally championing that in everything that you're thinking and you're saying, and then topping it all off with some nice wine. I mean,
Thank you.
That's the
wine just makes everything better.
It does, and it's always 5 o'clock somewhere, they say, isn't it?
Oh, exactly.
And when normality, whatever that normality looks like, resumes, what do you want your fitness classes to look like that you do with your with your groups of fitness, I want to say students, but you know, they might not be classed as students. You tell me.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and again, you know, back to our point about being creative, and things will have to change in the fitness industry massively. I know that we are not going to go back to the same kind of gyms the way they operated before lockdown. They will have to restrict number of people going into the gym. Certainly, group exercise is going to have to. We're going to have to rethink it. And actually, one of the things that we've talked about, or you know, I've kind of just keeping up with the industry. I think blended classes are probably also going to be a thing of the future. So you know, you'll probably have your if your capacity was at 20, you'd probably have to half that. So you might end up with 10 people in the room, maybe live streaming that class to people at home who would have access to either the live stream or a recording of that class at home. However, you know, we'll just have to see how that's gonna work out. But it definitely, I am well aware it's not going to be the same it was before lockdown. So another major shakeup. It's going to be interesting to see how that develops as well. I've actually taught a fully virtual class for one of the gyms I used to teach at. Yeah, it was interesting because you don't have people in front of you, so you're cheering them along, but there's no one in front of you. Wow, so that was interesting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that seems quite sort of surreal and a bit removed, really, because you'd be used to seeing all of those people jumping around in front of you, and you can shout and cheer, and you can hear everything, and the equipment, just the whole, you know, 9 yards, as it were. But when there isn't anyone in front of you, how do you keep yourself motivated then? What did you sort of tell yourself?
I was just so excited to teach. I absolutely love teaching fitness classes, and the ones that I teach. So I teach like a weights-based class, body pump. I love doing that. But you feed off that energy of people in the room, people in front of you, and so when you've got a packed room of everyone doing the same thing at the same time, it just, I mean, we call it fitness magic. It's great. You know what? But yeah, when you're in front of a screen in your flat, it's different. It's not, So, but you know what? I think I was just prepping for that class. I was so excited to teach, and I was, I think the thought of teaching again, even though there was no audience in front of me, it was quite exciting. And because I love teaching, I kind of, you know, the music went on, and I just imagined like there was an audience in front of me. So it was great. It was good fun. I had a great workout. Don't know about everyone else. I had a great workout.
You were back in the zone, definitely.
Oh yes.
It's so inspiring, and you can tell that you've got so much enthusiasm, so much passion and drive to you know, embrace all of this. And I really think that that's admirable, and it's really inspiring to people who are watching this now, and anybody who is thinking, have I got this right? Am I, am I approaching this task differently in the right way? And the fact that you've just got so much to give, Julia, comes across, and I bet your class was brilliant. And I'd love to know in 6 months' time, has your whole fitness class and regime, has it all gone virtual and digital and all of the wonderful things in between? So you'll have to let us know how that goes as well. Definitely.
I'll let you know. But I think the great thing there again is that human connection, and even though it can be delivered online, I think there's a core of regular participants who will definitely they will miss that connection, and so we'll see. It's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, it might be that blend again, like you said. It's that leaning into the digital, leaning into the physical, having a mixture. And it might come back to that whole sweet spot again, like with the events, anybody who's tuning in, so that they don't feel like an observer. How in the fitness world do you get those people who are dialing in to feel as though they're back in the room again, they're back in the zone, they can hear all of the equipment and everybody in time? It's going to be that sweet spot again, isn't it, of whoever cracks that and just brings that balance together.
Exactly.
It'll be wonderful. Oh yeah, I can't wait. Yeah, you'll have to give us like the link or something. We'll all have to dial in and do a
yeah, why don't we? an online session, absolutely.
Oh wow, okay, right, you've heard it here first. Julia, when you organise your next online session, share the link. I will get this shared out on here with everyone, and we can all dial in and do a class with you as our instructor, Julia. How's that sound?
Yeah, sounds good. I could happily do that, actually. And we can, it does require some equipment, but you can get creative, and if you've got like cans of food or a heavy book or whatever, you can use that. So we can get creative.
Perfect. That sounds smashing. Oh, I'm really looking forward to this. So last but not least, by any stretch, Julia, if you wanted to give some parting words of wisdom, some advice from the heart about business or personal life, what would you like to leave as your parting words to us and the rest of the audience watching this?
Yeah, I think I'd just say, you know what? I don't think anyone knows what's going to happen. I don't think we can only speculate, and so we can only just try and try and stay positive and keep trying new things, keep learning from our mistakes, and I think just a positive kind of mindset is going to help us all get through it. So yeah, let's keep innovating. Let's keep a positive mindset and see what happens.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Julia. It's been a real pleasure speaking to you. Love your enthusiasm, love your drive and your passion for business and for the fitness. I think it's great, and I can't wait for us all to do our fitness class with you.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Take care, Julia.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.